this finger out of my hole. I've been walking the road too damn long. I'm a cripple and a riddle with doubt. I need to get the finger out.
Hello everybody and welcome to Get the Finger Out podcast. My name's Darryl, I'm your host, and today is a lovely day. It is sunny outside. Many apologies to anybody that wanted to listen to the podcast last night. Unfortunately, I was tired as fuck and I'm not putting pressure on myself, and I just said, you know what, people will understand. I only think there's about 4 people listen to it at midnight anyway, but for anybody that was hoping to listen today, sorry about that, but it's here now, and here we are, another day, another week, and it's lovely. It's a lovely day outside. Actually, just before I started the podcast, I was in a fucking blah 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 mood. You know, I was like, oh fuck, just lots of things, but nothing really. You know, just the old crazy head, just going round and round in circles. I think because I spent a lot of time on my phone yesterday, and it was good because I was planning things. I was planning more gigs and different. The summer's always a big month for getting weddings and stuff like that. So I was planning stuff like that there and everything. But today's podcast, I'm going to do a big podcast. I sort of touched on it before in my first podcast, but I'm just going to basically tell the little story of Buskerman. Buskerman is my alter ego / stage name. I'll talk about how I came up with the name, or why I came up with the name, and I'll talk about busking. I'll talk about why I got into busking, why I was attracted to it, and I'll talk a little bit about my escapades along the way. And I'm going to try and keep it a positive sort of podcast, but you know, I do like to relate everything back to, you know, mental health or addiction, and you know, I have a few ideas of. Yeah, you'll get the gist. We'll just go with it. But just before I get into that, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody that is liking the podcast, listening to the podcast. All your comments on Spotify, YouTube, Apple are much appreciated. And just on a side note, I've just realised that the last 2 podcasts I haven't put on Apple, because I always upload to Apple last and I leave it overnight, and then if I leave it too long, it automatically logs me out before I click the publish button. So I'm going to do that now. When this podcast is doing its thing on the computer, before I upload it, I'll have the other ones uploading. Apple's probably where we get the least amount of viewers. There's maybe only about 40 odd people listen on Apple. YouTube in second, and Spotify seems to be where most people listen. I assume that's because Spotify's handy and you can listen to it in the car and all the rest. Well, I suppose you can with Apple as well, but I suppose Spotify has video as well, but most people prefer Spotify, I think. Actually, hello to any listeners that have just joined. Anybody who's joined just from TikTok. I've noticed a few people saying they've listened to the podcast, and that's exactly what I'm aiming for. I mean, when I started the podcast, and I would say the quantity of the viewers know me personally or indirectly through music or just through the internet or whatever, but yeah, to those people that have joined on TikTok, hello to you, and please follow on. If you'd like to get a brief idea of what I'm about and what the podcast is sort of about, then start with the first episode. From the first episode, I quit drinking alcohol for, I think it was a couple of weeks, and then by episode 9 or 10, I can't remember, I ended up relapsing. So now today I'm 2.5 weeks sober, and I think that's why I was getting a bit irritated today. You know, usually when I used to stop drinking alcohol myself without any help, I would always last maybe 2.5 weeks. So that's around the time, I think, even if a normal person who drinks every weekend stops drinking alcohol, then after about 2 weeks they start getting those cravings. Like today, it's a nice day, I'm a wee bit stressed because I was putting pressure on myself because of the podcast yesterday. You know, I was gigging all weekend, singing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I was doing a wedding on Monday, and then all weekend I was like, I can't wait to Monday to have a day off, and I'll just have the podcast to do, but the podcast doesn't really actually doing it, like sitting here right now talking away. I enjoy doing that. And let me just check my camera is rolling. 2 seconds. That's my old that's a wee defect of mine where I, if I leave the house, I always have to run back into the house because I think I've left something behind. I think it's sort of like a panic from childhood, where your parents are like, do you remember this? Did you remember that? And then that voice comes into your head, and when you're older and you're always forgetting stuff. Plus I've drank a lot of alcohol in my time, so I think I've killed a few brain cells, so I'm quite forgetful as well. But anyways, yeah, I was getting frustrated today. I was frustrated yesterday, and I was so tired. I'm watching a season of a TV show called The Shield at the moment. Anybody who likes actual decent TV, I'd advise to check it out. It's actually really, really good. It's from like the late 90s, early noughties, and basically I'm the king of TV, and I've watched fucking nearly everything, and I would say my favourite shows would be, The Wire, Breaking Bad, Sopranos. So if that's your sort of jam, of course I like all the dark serial killer stuff as well. I'm a real sucker for Nordic sort of, all them Scandinavian crime shows as well. They're really, really good. Right, well, this is a podcast where I can go on a million tangents, but I'll just quickly say I was frustrated, I was sitting up late watching The Shield and then getting up early to leave my partner to work, and then maybe not sleeping when I got home again, and then being too tired to do anything and getting stuck in that old rut again of smoking, chess, coffee, social media. So yeah, and then today I said yesterday to myself, tomorrow's a new day, fuck it, eat some chocolate, watch some TV, tomorrow wake up and all fresh and you'll be good. And then today I procrastinated until my AA meeting, and then I went to that, and then I got the little idea in my head again, I'd like to do counselling again, like study counselling. I was talking to a fella earlier who does it, and it just came into my head again, and it seems like something I could cope with. It's not too much pressure. I've done the fucking course before. I'd done it last year, but then I had to cut off early because I had to go to rehab. So I was doing a counselling course and the hypnosis course alongside each other, and then it was too much. Everything was too much. I was relapsing every fucking 2 to 5 weeks, so I had to go to rehab and get a head start on life. But I think now, it's 1 day a week, 5 hours, and then after that, I've done the course before, so I'm familiar with the coursework and all that, so it'd be a good place to train myself. And then if I feel like it next year, I could go and do the degree. It's a foundation degree, and that means you're a qualified counsellor, but that takes like 3 years, but it would be something to work on. So I've enrolled today, but I still have to pay the money. It's like fucking £700, so if I don't get the money together on time, then whatever. I'm sort of prioritising getting my house in good order at the minute, like not my mental house, well, my mental house as well, as in my brain, but also my actual house. So we want to start decorating a little bit and making the place a bit cozier. So, and I'm prioritised the podcast. I mean, the podcast only really costs me about £100 a month to make, because I pay for like some programs on the computer and also the platform for uploading the podcast and stuff. But I said at the start, the podcast isn't about money. I'm not trying to make money out of it. If I can make money in the future, that would be fucking amazing. But it's a therapy thing. It's something for me to do every week, and it keeps me accountable to myself by talking on the podcast, even though for the first 8 weeks I wasn't really being accountable to myself. But you learn from your mistakes and all the rest. But yeah, so I'm gonna just talk about just my busking journey. It's made up a big part of my life. I still call myself BUSKERMAN today when I sing in bars, and it all started So, as I said in my first podcast, I'll just gloss over the details very quickly. I was a photographer because in Liverpool I was doing a photo keyring job. It's just like a student job, if you're a student, and I was taking photos in nightclubs and then making photo keyrings for people. When I arrived back home in Ireland, my dad had a camera and I was like, can I have that? And I just started doing it in local pubs and stuff, and then that blossomed into doing actual photography. And then I was drinking and doing photography, getting bored. I enjoyed the creative aspect of photography, like doing, fashion and just taking random pictures of random shit and fucking about with light and fucking about in Photoshop. But then the jobs you're doing, you're turning up with a hangover to meet people and saying, okay, stand there like that there, and something goes wrong, like the light is wrong or something, and because I'm not like a professional or didn't study photography, I was always like, oh Jesus Christ, and having anxiety over like stupid little things. And it would always be something stupid, like you forgot to put a plug in or something, and yeah. But then the actual photos, they were just families and stuff like that, like the photography that actually made me money, and it just didn't interest me. I've sort of compared it with playing music in the pubs in opposed to creating your own music. Most people that create their own music don't really make money, much money anyway, unless you're literally making something out of yourself. But playing the pubs and playing cover music, which is a lot less fun than playing your own music, but there's good money in that, if you're half decent and you apply yourself. But I think, the comparison between doing portrait photography for families and doing creative photography, I still think playing music in pubs is a lot more exciting and fun, plus it's something I'm actually good at, I enjoy it. I love, some nights you turn up somewhere and there's nobody there, and it can be a bit of a drag, and you just have to get through it. And that's part of the reason why I like playing as part of a band now, or playing as a 2-piece band or 3-piece. But yeah, if you're going into a pub and it's busy and people are good fun and good crack, then I give it right back at everybody, and I enjoy the energy, and I end that night with the bar fucking buzzing and me going crazy and the band's fucking rocking out, and then you leave feeling good. You've done a good gig and you get some dough and live the dream for another day. But anyway, I have talked for 13 minutes talking absolute shite. So I was doing the photography. I had only ever busked once before in my life, and that's when I was like 18 years old in Belfast, and I couldn't sing for the life of me. If I ever sang sober in front of any friends, they would tell me to fuck up, But I always enjoyed singing. I still wrote songs, and I would sing drunk because the anxiety goes away and you sound better to other people as well. But I was always addicted to playing guitar, loved the guitar, and yeah, I went busking when I was 18, and I sang like 3 Oasis songs that I knew, and maybe like one, I think it was Everybody Hurts. I was singing, 'cause everybody hurts. And yeah, I still made like 6 quid. I made 6 quid to sing like a couple of songs, and that was enough at the time for whatever my goal was, probably a quarter bottle of whiskey. And then I never bothered again, Plus I didn't have amplification or anything like that. But so one day I was getting stressed out about just my lifestyle, never been able to save money. I always wanted to travel, and for a few months I'd been in between editing photos, I'd have another tab up and I'd be researching busking. I'd be checking like how much do buskers make and what countries can you busk like legally, and how much does it cost really to live in a day, if you're living like a tramp basically. If you're living on the bare minimum, you're sleeping on the bare minimum, how much can you make and how much can you live on? So I got various things, but then I read there was some busker had written a little article, and he'd written like, you know, I go busking at 10 a.m. I busk for an hour or two to just warm up, but that I don't worry about money, and then I go buy myself some fruit or a sandwich, and then I have a little break, and then I prepare myself for a proper busk, and then I do that. And usually he said, you know, he makes, you know, 60, 70, 80 quid, and then he'll either sleep in a tent or get a hostel for 15, 20 bucks quid, and or euros, or wherever the fuck he was living, and then he'll get a train for 12 euros somewhere else, and blah blah blah. And this guy's account, I can't remember what the account was or where I found it, but reading that, it just got stuck in my head as this little fantasy. And then I was researching, you know, the more secure way to travel. It was like, how much money do I need for an interrailing pass, and how much money do I need to go traveling for 3 months, you know. And you know, it was, most things said a couple of thousand or something, you know, and I was like, I was never able to save £1,000. I could never get my money above like £600-700. There would always be something I want to buy, a new piece of equipment, or I'd just go to the pub and spunk it all against the wall. And you know, this just kept happening. I was just like, fuck's sake, you know, my only goal in life right now, I'm a young boy, all I want to do is travel. You know, I got a taste of travel when I just went to England to live in Liverpool, and you know, that was great. It's just a great feeling to move away from home and get away from the normal, even if it is just England, you know. And yeah, and then I said to myself, you know, what if I just go to like England, and you know, I have lots of friends in different cities, you know, that I met at university, and I could just, then I'd have a secure place to stay on their sofas or whatever, because everybody was all still studenty and people weren't married and stuff at this time. You know, this is like early 20s, I think, and mid 20s anyway. Well, when I went to Liverpool, I was an old student because it was my second time at uni, so my friends there were younger than me, so they were in their early 20s anyway. I think I was mid-20s, but never got round to it, and never had the balls to just do it anyway. And then, you know, I remember waking up one morning and my dad was shouting at me for sleeping in bed for too long, and you know, just right, he was kicking my ass out of bed, but I was having none of it, and I was like, fuck off, you know. And that just triggered me, you know. I got in such an angry mood one day, and that triggered me to just say, you know what, fuck this. I am so sick of being in this cycle of, you know, at the time I didn't identify that the problem was drinking. At the time I blame everybody else, you know. I'd be like, my dad's a dick for shouting at me, he doesn't know that I'm spending all night, you know, editing photographs and blah blah blah, and I live by my own timeline and stuff. And part of it as well is like, you know, I was a fucking adult and I'm still living at home, and I should have been out of home at that time. I'd already lived away from home for about 4 years on and off, and I was back at home, you know. So you need your own space at that age. You can't have your parents telling you what to do, you know. You need to get your shit together, get the finger out. So anyway, that triggered me. I just said, fuck it all. I grabbed a bag of clothes. I made sure to not grab any clothes that, you know, my family had bought for me or anything. I just wanted to have stuff that was mine. Now, bearing in mind, the guitar was a gift to me for Christmas, so I was a bit hypocritical in that sense. But I grabbed a bag of clothes, and it was all old clothes. It was all like, you know, shit you just wear around the house, you know, shit you'd wear in bed, you know. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to be, you know, I was always attracted to the line in a movie called Pulp Fiction, if you've seen it. Samuel L. Jackson, at the very end of the movie, after a near-death experience, he says, "I had what an alcoholic refers to as a moment of clarity." And he basically says to John Travolta that he just wants to walk the earth. And John Travolta says back to him, "So you just want to be a bum? You just want to be a bum?" And he's like, Well, if that's what you want to call it, then yeah, but I just want to walk the earth. And that's what that line sort of stuck with me as well. I wanted to just walk the fucking earth. And I wanted to get rid of ego. I wanted to get rid of giving a fuck what anybody thinks of me and seep into the streets, you know, turn into a street rat. And that's exactly what I did. I had no amplification for my guitar. I just had a guitar. So I just had a backpack. I remember my mum bought me a backpack. So I stayed in Belfast busking for a little bit, and my mum bought me a backpack, and then one of those travelling backpacks, which I fucking loved. Still have it. Brought it everywhere with me. Brought it to Thailand. That's another story for another time about Thailand. That was a fucking crazy experience. But yes, so I left. I think I talked about this before, so I'll just gloss over. I left Belfast. I got a bus, went through Scotland, and my first stop was Birmingham. So I got to Birmingham. I don't think I had much money on me. I think I threw my credit card or my bank card away at the time. Yeah, because I was able to pay for the bus in the bus station, and then it got on a boat and drove you down. And got to Birmingham, and as soon as I got off the bus in Birmingham, I was like, this is fucking it, boy. This is it. I'm on my own. I have no ties to anything. You know, I just left my bank account. It was in debt. It was accumulating debt because I had the overdraft out and everything, or unauthorized overdraft, which banks are fucking wankers, by the way, just for, you know, charging you for being like a penny over, and they charge you 25 quid a month or something. But ventured on down into Birmingham. I had a friend there who I met at university. I was really good friends with him, and he was like, yeah, I live in he was in a student house. Sorry, I'm just trying to grab water. I've got no coffee today. Oops. That's cold. And yeah, and then I had a bit of a conundrum getting to my friend in Birmingham. I had my phone was running out of battery, and I think I'd printed out a map on how to get to his house. And anyway, I'm not going to get hung up on those details. I'm just going to gloss on through, because the whole point is about busking. So went to his house, stayed there, and there was loads of cool people, all different sorts of people, and that was class. And yeah, I have talked about this before. I talked about this in the other podcast about my first panic attack. So I'm going to gloss over England very quickly. But so I got to, if you want to know the rest of the story up until Canterbury, then go back to the podcast about panic attacks and anxiety. But yeah, so I got to Canterbury after a few months or a few weeks, I can't remember. And when I got to Canterbury, I was like, this is the perfect place to busk. And at this time, I was still busking with no amplification. Some days I'd make £30, some days I'd make £60 if I really pushed myself. I think my highest before I got to Canterbury was like 64 quid or something. And that was enough, because I had no rent to pay. I would eat for about 4 or 5 quid, you know, eating shit, like, and then yeah, the rest would just go cigarettes. I would have to buy tobacco every 3 or 4 days, and the rest would just be drink, you know, unless I had to travel to another city, in which case I would save up enough for a bus fare. Excuse me. So Canterbury, it's kind of like Galway. It's like all cobblestone streets and stuff like that there, and just a really beautiful place, full of buskers. I had a friend there from home who was living there, and he said I could crash in his for a little while. So I was crashing on his sofa and just going busking, getting drunk, coming back. And then I think I was annoying his housemates and stuff, so I had to sort of get out. And around that time I'd met a girl, and this was something I sort of done a lot when I was travelling, and I was actually criticising somebody the other day about doing this, and I'm just realising it's something I'd done myself, which is, you know, you would meet people. It's not like I was using girls, but I would meet girls and they would offer me to stay in their house and stuff like that, and then I would just go, like, you know, because I'm just a man walking the earth, and if somebody offers you a free fucking bed, then why not, like. But one thing led to another, and I started a relationship with this girl and started to like her a lot, you know, but at the same time I always had this thing in my head. I was like, fucking gotta leave, you know, I gotta leave and go travelling. And then it got to the point where she was gonna come travelling with me, but then I went to Netherlands, and then I met another girl, and then the other girl found out about the other girl, and the whole thing turned into a big fucking fuck up. And then I had to leave Canterbury, and I ended up going to Holland. So before I left Canterbury, so I'm talking about busking. I keep getting carried away, and it's 25 minutes in, so I'm going to talk about busking now. So I wanted to get into the busking because it just seemed like a free way of living, you know. What more could you ask for, that you just sing every day, something I love doing. And I wasn't a great singer at the start. It was only through singing over and over again the same songs over and over again, and subsequently enough I actually sing a lot of those songs today still. I was never born a singer. When I listen to my girlfriend sing, it's quite evident that she could sing from she come out of the womb, whereas me, I was always bad at singing. I always had power, and I've learned over the years not to let that power come from my chest anymore, although it does sometimes when my voice gets fucked, but to come from the gut. But anyways, the power, I always had the power, so I could sing real loud, like yeah, but not in tune. And people don't want to listen to somebody singing out of tune. But when I was in the streets, I sang over and over again, trying new techniques every day, looking at a video on the internet on how to sing. And you know, I always made money when I was singing particular songs. Like I do this medley of Red Hot Chili Pepper songs where, you know, I picked all the songs that I could play already in guitar and I just sang along with them. And then when it came to after a chorus, when I don't know the rest of the words, I just quickly switch into the next song. And over time that just developed into like this medley that I still play today that's actually quite good. It's probably my party piece. You know, if someone party piece, meaning if somebody said play me a song, then I just whack that out, and then 7.5 minutes later they'd be like fuck. And if they like the Chili Peppers, they'd love it. If they didn't like the Chili Peppers, then God help them. But yeah, so moved on. I got an amplifier when I was there and made a bit of money. And busking with an amplifier, it's just, I always seen it as a way to make more money, and it was, but it also added to the luggage, you know. So I was traveling just with a backpack and a guitar, and that was amazing. But then once I got an amplifier, I had to have a microphone, leads in my backpack, and then the actual amplifier. And over time, carrying the amplifier was a nightmare, so I started actually ditching some clothes and just putting the amplifier into the backpack when I was like traveling on somewhere else, and stuffing it with leads, and then I just have some clothes. And fuck, I recycled some amount of socks and underwear, but that's stinking, so we'll not go there. But yeah, I was a street rat. I was dirty. You know, when I got the chance, I'd wash clothes and get a shower, and then I'd be a clean person for a week or so, and then I'd be dirty for a week. And you know, it didn't bother me, you know. It really didn't bother me at all. I enjoyed it, actually. It was amazing. But I was drinking all the time as well. And a lot of people, when I used to come home and tell people what I was doing with the travelling and busking, and you know, I was posting a lot on Facebook and stuff, and people would comment going, oh my god, you're living the dream, that looks class. And when you get home, people would be like, oh, that's class, that's such an amazing lifestyle. And then they would say, I couldn't do that. And I would always say, sure you could. But now, having done it all, I realise I couldn't fucking do that, because I'm not drinking. The reason I could do it at the time is because I had no anxiety, because I was drinking all the time, you know. I always had alcohol. It became my best friend when I was travelling. No matter what happened, what women I met and women I broke up with, which people I pissed off and moved on to another town, or... Sorry, I have to refresh the computer as I do every 30 minutes every week. But yeah, no matter what happened or where I was or any of the dilemmas I got myself into, there was always a drink waiting for me, you know. Um, and I think I started realizing in Canterbury before I went. So when I was in Canterbury, I met a girl and then started a relationship, and then I'd come home to Ireland for Christmas and then went back to Canterbury. But over that period of time, then shit hit the fan with the relationship, and I met two buskers, and I was hanging with them in Canterbury and playing music, and that was the first time that I just started vomiting. So I just started I went to a pub for a pint with them after busking, and I took one sip of the pint and I felt sick. And that was the first time that was the second time that happened. It also happened in Norwich when I was with another friend and he was driving a car. He was rushing me to the train station to catch my train to get back to Birmingham, and I was like, I need to be sick, man. And he was like, oh fuck, but we were going to miss the train. And he was like out the window, and then I vomited out the window, and it all stuck to the side of his car. It was a bit of an old car, but still. And then he told me a week later that the vomit was still there, and the acid had started melting into the paintwork of the car. But anyways, it's disgusting. But yeah, that's when I just started feeling sick. And I didn't really stop drinking much. I only ever stopped drinking when I had a girlfriend, which didn't happen again for another, I don't know, couple of months or something when I moved to Germany. But when I was by myself and nobody to tell me what to do, it was just drink. I was just drink, busk, water, busk, meet girls, go to pub, sing in the street drunk, eat a kebab, go to bed, wake up, drink water, busk, drink beer, go to the pub, meet friends, meet girls, go do whatever. And it was just, it was fun when it was happening. In the mornings it was terrible until it got a little bit better when I was busking. So that was another thing I discovered I liked about busking when I started busking and drinking a lot, was the busking was a cure for a hangover, and at this point I wasn't getting withdrawals or anything. I hadn't experienced withdrawal yet. It was more just hangovers. So I'd wake up, but I didn't have any anxiety, I just had a bit of laziness and a sore head and feeling sick in the mornings, but I would always motivate myself. I think it was just the fear of not having money, because I was on my own and I couldn't, call home. I'd still, when I was in England, I'd still fallen out with my dad and stuff, and I couldn't really call. I didn't want to call home for money or anything either, and I didn't want to ask friends for money. I wanted to be self-supporting from the bottom up, and yeah, I would just, that fear would get me out the door in the morning. I need to go busk or I'm gonna be on the streets tonight. Well, not in England anyway. When I moved over to Europe, then it was like that. But yeah, it was a cure for being hungover. So you get out the door, you go busking. I've talked about this before, so I'll gloss over it. But you drink water, lots of water. You'd be getting appreciation from people. You'd be getting money from people. The more your box filled up with money, the happier and happier and more buzzing you got. You're like, I could see the money, I could count money. I was quite good at looking at money like a ball of change and just analysing how much it would be, and I'm still good at that. I could look at money very quickly and there'd be 50p's or 50 cents and €1 and €2 or £1 and £2, and I'd look at it and go, that's a good 45, 46 quid, and then I count it and it'd be like £47, But so when I'm sitting busking and that money piles up, I'm sitting counting in my head going, right, £20 for hostel, £5 for food, £10 for carry out, enough to get drunk, and then any money above that is pub money for beers in the pub, because I would always secure a carry out first to make sure I have enough drink to get through the day. If I don't make enough to get through the pub and get to the pub, and if I can't get to the pub, then I would just go to the hostel and drink there, meet new friends. With the busking as well, it was always great. So if anybody busks already, or if they're thinking of busking or whatever, and I mean like travelling and busking, not just going to fucking Belfast and standing in the same place every day for a year. I mean, if you want to actually go on the road, then a good wee trick is to go to the pub, even if you've enough for one pint, and even if you're by yourself, if you haven't made friends. And 9 times out of 10, I done this everywhere and it always worked. It was great. You just go to a pub with your guitar, buy a pint, sit near some people, and before you finish your pint, 9 times out of 10, European people are very open and friendly. In maybe not in France or Spain as much, but definitely in like, you know, Netherlands, Germany, Austria, those sort of places. People are like, "Oh, you have a guitar?" You know, and then you just say in your most Irish accent possible, "Yeah, man, yeah, I totally do, aye." You know, or whatever, you know, and people just go, "Oh, where are you from?" Or they go, "Oh, you're Irish." And then you're like, yeah. And they're like, "What are you doing here in the Netherlands?" And you're just like, "I'm just walking the earth, man. I'm just playing music every day and traveling and just trying to gain new experiences from life." And then that just sucks people in, and then you talk away, and before you know it, are you going to play us a song? And then you're like, yeah. Open the case up and just leave the case open whilst you're singing. And whenever you finish your busk, before you go to the pub, leave some change already in the case, so when anybody looks at your case when it's open, there's change there. And this is what I like to think, that I'm a psychological manipulation genius, but I'm full of shit. But I like to think that's why people would just go, "Oh," and throw €1 in, and then before you know it, passers-by, because a lot of the bars, you know, in the summer are outdoors, passers-by would like throw money in. People are coming into the pub because there's a man playing music, and I would do that all the time, and the least I would get is free pints anyway, a bit of good conversation and meeting new people. So, you know, if you're traveling and busking, don't just keep it to the streets and playing music for money. You know, just take the guitar out everywhere, because, you know, I used to have like a judgment thing where I'd be like, "Oh shit, I'm not good enough, oh, I don't want to bring the guitar out," and then start playing a song and everybody walks away or whatever. But at the end of the day, I wasn't that great at the time. I was very, very average, in my opinion, and people are still loving it. You know, they loved it. So that's a wee tip for anybody that's travelling and busking. So yes, I was drinking in the bar and it was great crack, and then I moved on to Germany. I used the service. So if you're travelling in Europe as well, it's always good if you're on a budget, it's always good to use buses. Flixbus it was at the time. I don't know if it's still that, but that was the best one. Like, you could go from fucking Netherlands to Germany, as long as you're not too specific on what time or day. But even within a week, if it's not like peak times, you get a bus for like €20, you know. And I used a thing called BlaBlaCar, which is basically like, it's like hitchhiking, but it's not, because you're paying money for it. So it's a carpool service. So you go online and... Shut up, cat. Hold on, I'm going to close this door because my cat's meowing. She's meowing because she probably caught her fucking rat or something. She brings mice into the house and rats. It's ridiculous. Anyway, BlaBlaCar. It's a service that's quite popular in Europe. I hope it's still popular because it's great. And on BlaBlaCar, you basically just sign up on this website, and somebody says, "I'm driving from Amsterdam to Hamburg at this specific time, and I need €13 to cover petrol with 4 people." So I got in a car with this Muslim man who was really nice, and he can't really remember much now, but he was explaining the Quran to me because I was deeply interested. and I was asking him stupid questions, are all Muslims, fucking, is it within the Quran that you can have a 13-year-old wife or something like that, and he set me straight. And because we're awful, we believe the shit we see on the internet, and I've always believed a load of shit, without researching it or whatever. And this is what traveling was all about for me. It was learning new things from people, make new experiences, and just meeting different kinds of people, so that was a great experience anyway. Glossing all over, got to Hamburg, then I used another service, which there's a service called couch surfing, which you can basically stay in someone's house for free if they're offering up their couch, because they're just friendly people who want to meet new people. And to be honest, I would probably do it in my house, only I'm pretty sure my partner would not like it. But yeah, it's basically Airbnb, only it's free. And you just basically say, I can offer you one sofa, I can offer you ham sandwiches, and what I expect back is maybe to go out with me or 1 hour conversation, something like that. But I found another one, it was called Be Welcome, I think. And I'd been told by other travellers that this one was better than Couchsurfers, because Couchsurfers, it's a bit different now because you have to register and you get rated and everything. But back then, it was just a lot of fucking sleazy men, saying girls only, come stay on my sofa and I'll fucking rape you, sort of thing. So, it would be easy for girls to get somewhere to stay, but girls need to be fucking careful because there's a lot of fucking sleazy, badass men out there. You fucking wake up in a bathtub with no kidneys and some cunt nibbling on your liver. So... yeah, went to Germany, went to Hamburg. I was like, holy shit, look at this city, it's beautiful. And went out into the suburbs, went to go to my Be Welcome guest, and it was a girl, I forget her name, probably won't say her name because I'm probably going to talk some shit about her here, but went instead walked into the room. I was welcomed very much. There was these 3 girls there sitting having a beer, and they were like, hi. I was like, hi, I'm Darrell, I'm Irish and I'm a travelling musician. And they were like, oh, hey, we're blah 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 and we're radical feminists. And I didn't really know much about feminism. I know a lot more now, but again, experiences, meeting new people, blah blah blah. But I was particularly drawn to the word radical, meaning, so what's radical feminism? And they were basically just saying that they're like extreme feminists. And the more they talked about shit, the more it was like, my understanding, I could be wrong, of what feminism is a, just fighting against oppression, fighting for equality. So everybody, that's my idea of what feminism is anyway, fighting for everything to be equal, because things are definitely not equal between men and women in this world. And but these guys were radical. So I was like, what does that mean? Are you going to go and run into a all-boys school and blow up a bomb or some shit? But yeah, I was talking away, and every time I would talk, they would just correct me. If I said man, which I say to girls, and I say boy now a lot because I'm back in Ireland, at the end of a sentence I go, what's the correct boy? I call my girlfriend boy. I don't mean to, but it's just one of those words that, yeah, man. So if I said anything like that, then I'd get instantly corrected, and I'd be like, oh, sorry. And, I'm obviously not giving my full opinion because I'm staying under these girls' roof, And, yeah, they basically, well, we had a good night. I would say something like, oh, and then this crazy motherfucker. And then they'd be like, don't say motherfucker, say uncle fucker. And I'd be like, okay. But no, they made nice food and stuff, and it was grand. And the girl said she was a musician, said I could stay in her house as long as I want, and all this stuff. I was like, fucking great, and blah blah blah. Again, that thing happened where one thing led to another. I ended up getting with this girl, and moving on, she went away to go hitchhiking or some shit, and then I met a girl, and I was like, holy fuck, I love this girl, you know. So I ended up getting with her, and then I had to go and tell the other girl that it's over or whatever, and that was grand. So I started spending time with this new girl who ended up being my girlfriend and travelling with me for a while. But this other girl texted me out of the blue. So I'm basically talking about my time busking and not really talking about busking as such, but I'm trying to keep going back to it, but I'll get there. This other girl called me one day, and I'm sitting there, and she was like, I need to talk to you. And I was like, this can't be good. It's either going to be A, I fucking love you, B, I've got an STD, or C, I'm pregnant. And I knew it was one of those three things, and then she was just like, I'm pregnant. And I was like, no, it's all coming to an end, it's all fucked, oh my god. Living so long with no anxiety, and then this happens, and I was like, fuck. And I'm getting these thoughts of, should I just be a bad person and just do a runner and just disappear into the fucking night, or like, what do I need to do, and blah. And then, you know, I talked to my current the current girl I was with about it, and then she brought me to her mother, and it was my first time meeting her mother and talking about it, you know. And I think I had an anxiety sort of panic sort of thing at the time. Of course I did, fucking right I did. But then this girl was like, you know, you need to come. I was like, what happens now? That's what I said. I said, what's our options? You know, trying to aim at, you know, do you want a baby? Blah, blah, blah. You know, I'd have no problem with, you know, what do you call it? Abortion. You know, but obviously I don't want to be the person that says that, you know. So I asked her, what's the crack, you know, and she basically said, there is no options. The options is you must move to Germany and you must get a job and you must support this child. And I was like, ah. And of course I didn't know no better. I was like, fuck, maybe I do have to do that, but how the fuck am I going to get a job? I've got no real skills. I don't speak German. I'm a fucking busker. At this point in time, I'd never really done any gigs either. So like, I was only really getting better at singing still, you know, at the time. And I didn't know what to do. And then the girl I was seeing's mother told me, no, that's not the law. You don't need to do that. Like, there's ways around this and blah, blah, blah. So I relayed this to the other girl, but she was being completely irrational and completely fucking nuts. And I was like, freaked out. And then she blocked me on everything. And I was like, right, well, nothing I can do. So I just moved on, just went travelling about again. I'll come back to that later, because something happened on that story. But so yeah, I moved on. The girl I'd met, she had finished her degree, and I had invited her to come travelling with me, and I would pay her way, and basically that would mean I would get her to like sell my CDs and get people interested in me, like bring a hat around to people and stuff like that, to try and make more money to support us both. Of course, you know, those days would come where I was too hungover to play, or it would rain or whatever, and then she'd have to take money out of her pocket, and then that caused arguments and blah blah blah. But out of courtesy, I'll not get too much into that there, out of courtesy for my current partner and the ex-blade woman. But so I moved on. I was travelling with the busking. I'd started finding some good spots in Germany. The thing I loved about Germany was it was like, in Hamburg, it was a 24-hour sort of city, so you could go singing at 4 o'clock in the morning and make money. You could go singing at 9 o'clock in the morning and make money. And there was different spots all over town. I could use the train for free because they never seemed to ever check for your ticket. I did get caught years later though, but you know, I got caught once. There was a fine. I don't even remember if I paid it or not, because I was leaving the country and I was like, fuck it. But it's lovely. So I moved on. I was just where did I go just straight after that? Oh yeah, so I went back to the Netherlands because I had some friends there, and the girl I was with was going to Austria, so I went to meet these other two friends, a girl from Ireland and a girl from Brazil, and I was quite friendly with those guys. And then those guys had lost their job in the hostel, and I was like, holy shit. I had met another Muslim man who, this weird guy who was always like, hey Daryl, man, you need to get girls for me, you need to help me find girls. And I think he was like a 24-year-old virgin Muslim man who just wanted to get a wife or a girl or something, and he just seen me as his way to get girls, because he would see me just being like a friendly person to girls and boys in the hostel, and he'd be like watching going, hey man, you talk to girls, you need to get me some girls. And he never shut the fuck up about girls. It was hilarious, but it wasn't so hilarious after a while. But then he gave me a key to his flat in Belgium and just said I could use it when I wanted. It was like a spare key, and I was like, okay. And so when I went back to Utrecht, I met those girls I was friends with from before, and then they had lost their job and they were like trying to figure out what to do, and I was like, I've got a key for a guy's flat in fucking Belgium, do you want to go? So we all went. I think it was Ghent we went to. But then this straight, so these two ladies I was with, they were partners. So, you know, they were lesbian partners, but the street we were on was like this, what do you call the word for it? It's like a Sharia law or something like that. It's like a street that's all Muslim, but it's like really, really strict Muslim, and I think it's something above and beyond, you know, the Quran or whatever. I don't know, I don't understand it, whatever. But basically, you know, two like hippie looking girls walking about, you know, I don't think they were like holding hands in the street, but like they were just like wearing revealing clothes or whatever, or had dye hair colour in their hair and stuff. So they were getting loads of looks. I was riddled with anxiety, and all I wanted to do was just go and meet the girl that I'd met in Germany down in Austria. So I went to do that, and every time I went to a new city, Busking, so I'm going to go back to the Busking here. Fucking 52 minutes, Jesus Christ, I haven't even touched on it. I'll tell you what, I'm going to have to call this episode Busking Part 1, and then I'll move on. So I'll finish, so let's just put a fucking a schnibbin, let's put a hair clip in it there and say that I'm on my way to Austria, and then I'll do it in a few episodes time. I think next weekend I'm doing the guest episode, so in a few episodes time I'll do like a Busking Part 2. So I'll finish off the last sort of 8 minutes or so and just talk about some tips I learnt with busking. Actually, funny enough, my crazy mind, I've talked about before, when I get sober for a couple of weeks, I start getting really ambitious and I get new ideas of something I want to do. When I left rehab, I wanted to write a book because I'd read so many books in there. I'd heard someone talking about being a skydive instructor quite recently. I researched it, I was going to become a skydiver instructor. So I was going to do like 50 fucking jumps, which probably cost like, you know, £800 a jump. So you do the math, I don't know, like 20 grand before you can actually become an instructor. As of recently, I've always wanted to do acting, and, you know, my girlfriend does plays and stuff, but I'm not really attracted to doing stage plays. I'm more attracted to doing stuff on camera. And I think I wrote that as one of my goals, you know. In one of the earlier episodes, I'd done like a bucket list for those of you who've been listening to all the episodes. And one of the things was to act in a movie, whether it be a student shitty movie or an extra in a bigger movie or whatever. But to apply to all these casting calls, they're always asking for a show reel. And because I have got nothing, I've only got reality TV, and you can't really send myself being an idiot on fucking There's No Place Like Tyrone or Secret Crush for an acting job. But then I was researching, you can make your own show reel. Doesn't need to be a movie. I can just set up a camera in the house and then just act some random scene, something to make up myself or something from a movie or something. But anyways, I wanted to be an actor there yesterday. I wanted to open a restaurant one day there. You know, my girlfriend's head is racked with me talking about these new ideas all the time, but, you know, trying to keep it tunnel vision and simple at the minute. Podcast, okay, I want to go and do the counselling again, but that was an old thing that I still want to do. I think, you know, I think when I'm in my 40s, I won't be able to do 4 or 5 gigs a week. I'll probably only want to do like 2, 3 maybe. And, you know, I'd like to have something to do on top of that helps people and also makes me a bit of money. But anyway, I can feel myself talking faster and faster here because I know the clock's ticking down. Not that I need to end exactly at an hour, so I was going to end with some busking tips. Anyway, the whole point of telling you all that 2 seconds ago was I was going to write a book about busking, and I still might do it at some point. And my idea for the book would be, it would be like 50 tips for busking, no pun intended, or 100 tips for busking, no pun intended, as in tips, pun, blah blah blah. And each tip would be, you know, it wouldn't be like something like, oh, choose this equipment or whatever. It'd be more like, don't trust the weather applications. I'll get onto that now. That's probably a wee tip for busking for anybody that wants to busk. But I would give a little bit of information of why, blah blah blah, but then relate that into a story from my busking experience, my busking trip around the world. And that was my idea for a book. So it'd be sort of half biography, half autobiography. No, is it a memoir? I don't even know. Anyway, I had an idea for writing a book one time. I've put a pin in it. I might do it at some point. The idea of sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours typing though fucking fries my head even thinking about it. So busking tips for anybody that ever wants to busk, or people that busk already, and just some people might disagree with these tips as well if they're a busker, and if you do disagree with them, leave a comment or go and fuck yourself, whatever. Sorry, I'm becoming a real resentful person these days. I need to start getting out of that. But yeah, don't trust weather applications, and the point of that is I would always tailor my busks to looking at like Apple's weather application or looking at Google weather, and then it would say it's going to rain at 5 o'clock, but then at 7 o'clock it won't rain. So I would like say, okay, I'll do something at 5 o'clock and then I'll busk at 7, but then at 5 o'clock it doesn't rain, 6 o'clock it doesn't rain, and then it rains at 7 o'clock. And days it says it's raining, then it doesn't rain, and days it says it doesn't rain, there's fucking bad wind. So the best idea for busking is just keep the consistency going. Just say, I will get out every day at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. I'll go find a good spot for starting at 10:30, 11 is a good time to start, I think. You know, it's quiet enough, but then people are getting their breaks from work and stuff. Some people are on their way to work, people that start at noon, and then it gets you well warmed up for lunchtime, and then you can take a break and then start again. You've got the whole day ahead of you. And the thing is, if it's raining, then you can go to a Starbucks where they have free refills. I think there's Starbucks in every city in the world, and most of them have free refills, so you just drink the house coffee. And I just go in there, usually have a phone or a laptop with me, and do some shit that I need to do, you know, whether that's upload a video to social media, or plan my next trip somewhere else, or scope out new cities, that what the busking laws are in those cities and stuff like that, or just communicate with friends. You know, there's always time to catch up with old friends, or call home, call parents, whatever. And the good thing about the rain, if you're in a city, let's take Belfast for instance. I fucking hate busking in Belfast now because it's just become overrun with people. People are really loud. The people have fucking big egos and things like that there, but we'll say no names. Yeah, so if you're in Belfast and it's a sunny day, every fucking pitch is gonna be covered by 11, half 11. You know, most of those buskers that get out every day, they'll fucking be sitting on the spot from 8 o'clock in the morning, sometimes earlier. Sometimes people drive a car and park on the fucking busking spot, which drives me insane. But I'm gonna leave the resentment at bay, or I'll say something to get myself in trouble. But the good thing about the rain is if people get that sitting there at fucking 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they start busking at 10 o'clock, but you want to busk at 11, but Oh, lost a bit of. I hope you're still there, but yeah, it rains them off, you know, it rains them off, and then you go into Starbucks or go into a coffee shop, and then you sit there, and then you just watch the spot. You check the weather app. If I know I just said don't trust weather apps, but you know, if it says the rain's dying down in the next hour, then fucking get out to the spot, and because nobody's gonna sit there for an hour in the rain after they've sat there all day. They're gonna just say fuck this, I'm going home. So it rains people off. So rain is not your enemy when you're busking, only when you're set up, obviously. Rain can be your friend, so that's another wee tip. And wind is your enemy. If it's windy, and usually weather apps are quite good at predicting wind. If there's more than fucking 12 miles per hour wind or something like that, don't go, because number one, people don't stop. People, it's wind and they're like, ugh. You know, they don't want to stop and listen to you, or they don't want to take their hands out of their pockets because it's giving them a chill, it's a bit cold. And number two, your box, if you use a guitar box for collecting money, then it keeps fucking blowing over. I used to actually wedge like a water bottle into my guitar box, so because it's so annoying when you're in the middle of a song and you don't want to stop in the middle of the song to open your case again. And yeah, you don't want to do that. But also, if you leave it closed and then you're playing away, then you don't want to, or you're not you get it in your head, you're not making money. Now sometimes somebody will come over and set money on top of your box, but I found that when I'm playing, then people don't give you money when your box is closed and you're singing. And the other thing with the wind is the fucking microphone. You know, the wind blows into the microphone and you're trying to sing and it's like so. Don't play in the wind, it's shit, and you won't make much money, in my experience anyway. Another thing, I don't know if this is real or not. I don't know if this is what's the word for when you walk under a ladder? I don't know if this is superstitious of me, but I found whenever I played and wore sunglasses, if I put sunglasses on when I was playing, that I wasn't making much money. You know, the money was very slow. And I don't know if that's superstition on my part, but I do have a theory behind it. Well, number one, the most obvious thing, maybe you look like an ego-driven prick. You know, you think you're Bono or something, but maybe that's my anxiety telling my head that, you know, because my inner critical head, because it goes all the time. But the main one I got, there was a test done one time where someone done a busk and they left a bucket out and they made X amount of pounds, let's say £10, and then they done the exact same busk for the exact same amount of time the next day with a bucket, but they put eyes on the bucket, and I think this was an experiment, you'd need to Google it, and they ended up making like 4 times as much money or something, because there was eyes on the bucket. And I know it sounds stupid, there was eyes on the bucket, people felt like they were being watched, and then they felt like if they're being watched that they felt like they had to give money or something to the busker or whatever. I don't know. So my theory is, with the eyes on the bucket, if I'm wearing sunglasses, people can't see my eyes, and therefore, you know, if they see my eyes, then they're more inclined to know they're being watched, and then they're more inclined to give me money. But that's just theory, I don't know. Bearing in mind, at the start of busking, you know, I wasn't that great. You know, I'd be making, sometimes I play 2 songs in a row and not make any money, and it affects your confidence, yeah, but you just gotta power on through. And that's the other thing, you know, if you're busking, I find, this could be superstition as well, but a lot of people, other buskers have said this to me, if you're busking for money, if you're like, right, I need to make this much money, I'm desperate for money, it comes across in your performance and you don't make much money. Whereas if you get into a state of flow, like if you're just enjoying yourself and playing the music and not counting the money as it's going, then I find that that rubs off on other people and you make more money. You seem happier, you seem like you're not sitting there stressed out trying to make money busking. You're actually just a busker who's playing music, enjoying himself, and people are throwing you money. And that definitely rings true to me, you know, a lot. Definitely a lot, you know. So I would say another wee tip as well. I have to go here, but another wee tip would be set yourself a target and make that target realistic. You know, go busking a couple of times and see how much you average. And you know, if you can sing for more than 2 hours, then I don't know. I used to set my goal once I got a bit better at €100 or £100. And if it rained me off or whatever, blah blah blah, I'd go to Starbucks and I'd be like, right, I've made £30 already, I just need to go and busk again and make the £100. Or if it's a slow day, or if it's windy and stuff like that and the money's slow, I'd be like, fuck's sake, right, I gotta do the whole set twice basically, and I'm just in it for the long haul. So I gotta do 3 hours, sometimes even 4, for my fucking £100. But a lot of the time, within about 2 hours, I would normally, basically in the amount of time it took me to sing my whole set, I would get to that £100. And then when I used to actually busk in Belfast, I would hit that £100 and then bank it. So I'd put it away and I'd say that's my money for my savings, and then I'd just do another quick busk to make the amount of money for the bus fare home again. So it would be like £18 or £20 return, you know. And that way, you know, my bus fare money didn't eat into my target money that I made. So setting yourself a target's good, but if you're sitting there busking 2 hours and you've still only made, you know, less than half of your target, then just cut your losses, call it quits, go home, buy some fucking fast food or chocolate, or treat yourself, and whatever you like, go for a pint. And I'd go for a pint even if I hit the target anyway. But yeah, setting a target always helped me. And every hour I used to count my money. I would just basically have a cigarette every hour or 45 minutes, and then I'd count the money. I would always count the 50p's and 20p's and 10p's or 10 cents or whatever first, and that way the pounds are easier to count earlier or later. And I would always like surprise myself by how much I'd made. You know, if I counted like the pounds first, it'd be like 10, 20, 30, 40, and then you're counting 50p's and you're like, oh, it's going slow. But if you do all the hard work first, counting the smaller change, then you're like, you get up to 30, 40 quid with the small change, and then you're like 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, blah blah blah. And then other days, you know, maybe like 20% of the time you'd fucking smash that target, or I would smash the target. You know, your target doesn't need to be £100. Maybe you're fucking way better than me and your target's £200. Maybe your target's £50. It doesn't really matter to set a target. But some days you'd smash the target and then you're really happy. Sometimes a couple of times I done over £250, £300. But that's on a really good day. You know, the town's busy, there's not too many buskers about, I'm in a good mood, people are giving you notes as well. Like sometimes when you're busking, somebody's like, fuck, that's my fucking favourite song in the world, take a tenner, take £20, you know, blah blah blah. So yeah, set a target. I have a lot more tips, but I'll save them for the next time, and I'll tell more of the busking trip story. I want to try and not leave anything out, and then I can have it recorded and never have to tell the story ever again. So please like this podcast on whatever you're listening on, if it's YouTube or Spotify or whatever. Please leave a comment. Let me know in the comments what you like about the podcast, what you change about, or private message me what you change about the podcast. Any advice, I'd take it on. And if anybody needs help with stopping drinking or stopping drugs, get in touch with me. I would love to try and help you. I'm only 2.5 weeks sober myself, but you know, no better man to try and talk to you. So yeah, have a lovely day. I will be back. I have it penciled in for next week to do a guest podcast. So as long as nothing goes terribly wrong, we should have a really great guest podcast next week, and I've one planned for the week after that. And I don't know if I'll see how the first guest podcast does in comparison to this podcast, by myself, and if it goes really, really well, then I'll maybe put out one every 2 weeks. You know, if it just does the same as this, then I'll maybe put it out every month, or depending on my schedule. You know, I'll just go with the flow. But you know, the week that I actually didn't do a podcast, when I relapsed, I did lose a lot of viewers. You know, as I've said, I was getting a consistent sort of 200 people listening a week, and now it's dropped down a wee bit. So my goal is to sort of bring that up a bit, and then I've got an idea of, you know, if I could get the podcast up to, like, you know, even a few hundred more, or 1,000 or something listeners, I would love to do a guest podcast live. Now, I'm not talking like a big, you know, like the Blind Boy podcast, or like fucking one of these big comedy podcast shows or something like that. I'm just talking, you know, a small theatre of like 100 people or something like that there, and doing a wee live podcast there and seeing how that goes, because I think that could be great crack, and it would be great to interact with, you know, people. Obviously the people there, like a good amount of them, are hopefully you guys that are listening to the podcast already, and I would keep it local enough as well, in Armagh or Dungannon or wherever I can get somewhere. And I think that would be a really great thing, and I could put some music into it too and something like that, and record the thing and put it out as a podcast. So that's my sort of goals in the future for the podcast. But for now, I need to get the first I need to get the finger out. I need to get the first guest podcast done, and that's the sort of plan. So I will see you next week, and hopefully with a guest podcast. And yes, have a great week and live the dream.
I need to get this finger out of my hole. I've been walking the road too damn long. I'm a cripple and a riddle with doubt. I need to get the